The more strange a dream seems to us, the deeper meaning it carries. Sigmund Freud. The disease began suddenly and acutely with an increase in body temperature. Initially, during the first 3 days, headache, malaise, runny nose, pharyngitis, and gastrointestinal disorders were noted. Then, on the 4th day, my condition worsened dramatically. I could not stand on my feet. I couldn't walk. My legs gave out. I lay in my father's arms and looked out the car window. In the window, one picture replaced another. Plantations of trees were replaced by buildings of stations and substations. High-rise buildings were replaced by a picture of endless fields. I used to travel by train. We occupied a whole compartment. It was hot, but the windows were closed all the time. I looked out the window all the way and it didn't bother me at all. Flashed and flashed someone else's life, very interesting, bright, and sometimes mysterious. Lying in my father's arms, I looked at the yellowing fields and green meadows, at the blue rivers and lakes with lonely fishermen and reeds, at the blue sky with white lambs of clouds that seemed to float behind the train, not lagging behind it, and not overtake him. I looked with bated breath at someone else's life, opening up for a second in fleeting pictures, as if in movie frames. Then a woman with a basin came out and began to take off her clothes from the rope stretched next to the porch of a wooden house. Before you have time to think about who she is, what she thinks and dreams about, a new picture opens up. A truck with cows in the back is standing at the railway crossing, and the driver says something to the railway worker with a flag in his hand, and it is not clear whether they are cursing or laughing. The train rushes so fast that all these colorful pictures of nature rush by in an instant. Driving next to a field of sunflowers, I see a lot of suns. I am overwhelmed with extraordinary delight. I closely follow the yellow beautiful heads of sunflowers. In the evening, when it is already getting dark and it is impossible to make out anything around, I close my eyes and watch for a long time how the pictures flash before my eyes. Getting to the destination, Kharkiv, is somehow sad, but still interesting, because mom, grandparents, new impressions are waiting there. I fell ill in a sanatorium where my father bought me a ticket to the Union of Medical Workers. Not only did I get sick, many children in my detachment fell ill, with whom I only managed to make friends. A lot of time has passed since then, but even now, if I close my eyes, I see myself in the arms of my father and the views from the train window. A lot of time has passed, but when I remember the events of that time, the next memory is that I am lying in a room in my grandparents' house. Grandpa tells me different stories and gave me a magic stone. The history of this stone is amazing. It has been passed down in our family from generation to generation. Moreover, the stone itself chooses its owner. As grandfather said, the stone shows its magical properties only with the member of our family whom he chooses himself. How do I know the stone chose me? I asked my grandfather. You yourself will know it and you will feel it yourself, grandfather answered. He put the stone under my pillow. My arms and legs refused to obey me. I do not remember other doctors near me, except for my grandfather, father, and mother. I don't remember receiving any treatment. I just lie in bed all the time and the only entertainment is grandfather's tales. I remembered the story of the magic stone for the rest of my life, and for this there was a very important reason for me. Exodus of the Jews from Egypt took place, according to the Torah 1400 BC, and the conclusions of Dr. Sigmund Freud. The doctor stated that the event, the Exodus, took place between 1358 and 1350 after the death of Pharaoh Akhenaten. So, paradoxically, a researcher who has assimilated, but not renounced his Jewishness, uses for his story a source whose authenticity was first questioned 18.5 centuries ago. Dr. Sigmund Freud told this story to one of our relatives, said the grandfather. I spoke to a famous rabbi and he does not deny that this story may have been real. The only thing he disagrees with is the date when I want to tell only that part of the story that concerns the stone presented to me. The Egyptian pharaoh of the 18th dynasty Amenhotep IV, reigned approximately 1351 to 1334 BC, suddenly decided to introduce monotheism in Egypt, a country with an ancient and well-established by that time polytheistic culture. The pharaoh began to serve the one god Aten, represented in the form of a solar disk, changed his name to Akhenaten, which means Aten is satisfied, and built a new capital, Akhetaten. Akhenaten's attempt failed completely. After his death, Egypt rejected monotheism and erased this pharaoh from their historical memory. In the ancient Egyptian era, before Akhenaten became pharaoh, the Egyptians treated their pharaoh as a god. But Akhenaten completely changed their belief system, calling himself the living god. It is believed that Akhenaten was the only pharaoh in Egypt who denied all gods, saying, "God is one and this is Aten," which means sun in Greek. Ancient historians believe that Aten was not just a symbolic god, he was the only god that Akhenaten or other Egyptians saw in the sky with their own eyes. Akhenaten and his other followers worshipped the ball of the sun. In some ancient wall paintings in Egypt, we can still see the solar orb approaching the Egyptians from the sky. Akhenaten was indeed the most unusual character in the history of Egypt. His skull was longer than that of any other normal person, his belly protruded beyond his body, and his legs were too thin. Because of such an unusual appearance, many believed that he was not from this world. After the death of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the Egyptians made great efforts to completely exclude his existence from the history of Egypt. In this process, they removed all the names and images of Akhenaten from every wall of the house of God, temple. Akhenaten was also known as Amani-Hiri-Si. Akhenaten simply disappeared without a trace in this world. Did Pharaoh Akhenaten belong to this world or was his origin from another world? No one knows. It is known that the origin of Amenhotep IV, according to the rules of succession, deprived him of any rights to the throne. Neither to the royal family nor to the Egyptian people in general. His father, Amenhotep III, having married illegally, bypassed all the heirs of the royal blood by this marriage. In this way, he deprived his heir of the legal right to the throne. In the eyes of the priests of Amenhotep IV, the young pharaoh, who was the illegal ruler of Egypt, with all the ensuing consequences. Amenhotep III was a lover of luxury and, at least in his later years, a licentious person. The real power belonged to Queen Tai, whose titles testify to her power. After the death of Amenhotep III, she ruled the state as regent. Tai called her son to Thebes, where he was enthroned under the name of Amenhotep IV. Amenhotep IV during his reign gained a reputation as an outstanding politician and reformer during whose reign there were significant changes in Egyptian life. According to a legend told by Dr. Freud, one night an angel named Beton appeared to the pharaoh in a dream and told him, "You must believe in one God." "Where can I find a teacher to teach me?" asked the pharaoh. "Look around you and your country, you must find the answer to your question yourself. You will see the answer with your own eyes," replied Beton. Since religion was the main form of ideology in ancient Egypt, and the temples were the largest centers of cultural influence, religious preaching could be used by the Egyptian government to strengthen the political and cultural influence of Egypt in neighboring countries. For this purpose, new forms of the cult of the single god of the sun were created, in their simplicity and clarity, understandable and accessible to the multilingual and multi-tribal masses who inhabited neighboring Egypt. At the center of the cult of the Aten was Mot, both the goddess of truth and the very concept of truth. Akhenaten usually wrote his name, adding the nickname Ankhenmot, living in truth. The religion of the Aten signified the worship of the light, and offerings were made on altars arranged in regular rows in the spacious courtyards of the god's temple. The ceremony was in stark contrast to the cult of the hidden Ammonius, whose sanctuaries were hidden in darkness. Aten was not depicted, but was represented as a disc or ball emitting rays, each of which ended in a life-giving hand. In the largest cities of Egypt, where the cults of the ancient gods were especially strong, in Thebes, Memphis, Heliopolis and Hermontis, Akhenaten built temples to the new sun god Aten, who was henceforth proclaimed the only state god. Moreover, the cult of the Aten was planted even in Nubia, where, under Amenhotep III, a new city was founded below the third threshold, called Gem-Aten. Akhenaten destroyed the temple built here by his father in honor of the Theban god Ammonius, and erected a new temple in honor of the new solar god Aten. But one day to Akhenaten, as he called himself, the angel Concrete appeared in a dream at night and said, "You made a mistake, you didn't see the true God. You trusted your own eyes, but not feelings and reason. You had a choice and you made it. But you showed a great desire to find and know faith in God. For this, I will give you a talisman." This is a jasper stone with a magical picture, in which the image of a man and a horse is combined, which symbolizes the constellation Sagittarius, under which you were born. Put it under your pillow and it will preserve your health, protect you from the evil eye and from the unfriendly intentions of other people. It is someone else's negativity that can cause serious and protracted illnesses, life failures. This stone itself chooses its owner. Learn to believe, and then you will feel whether the stone has chosen you or not," said grandfather and interrupted the story. He and I again began to look at the stone he had given me. Dr. Freud did not tell how the stone got to him, but he gave this stone to our relative, who then rendered him a very great service. Grandfather continued the story. I held the stone in my palm and felt what a pleasant warmth. Grandfather took a stone from my palm and put it under my pillow. I couldn't do it myself, my hands didn't obey me. It was already late in the evening, my eyes closed. Grandpa wished me good night and I fell asleep. I remember that dream all my life. I dreamed of lemons, they ran, jumped, had fun and called me to them. When I woke up I really wanted a lemon, I directly felt its taste in my mouth. In the morning I didn't want to eat anything, I only wanted lemon. Dad was glad that I had at least some desire. Dad didn't go to work that day, he went to the market, only at the market at that time you could buy a lemon. It cost incredible money then, it was a big deficit. When Dad brought a lemon, Mom cut it into circles and began to feed me. I greedily ate the whole lemon without sugar. I did not feel its sharpness, acidity, I only felt the desire to eat and eat it. When Dad saw this, he immediately went back to the market and bought a few more lemons. I only remember how I ate the first lemon, I don't remember how much I ate afterwards. After eating I fell asleep. When I woke up, I felt that my arms and legs began to obey me again. I began to recover. Until the end of the 50s. In the 20th century, poliomyelitis was a formidable disease. It was an epidemic that claimed many thousands of lives in different countries, mostly children. Of the sick, about 10% died, and another 40% became disabled. In the USSR, the epidemic spread of polio began in 1954. In the mid-1950s, 10 to 13.5 thousand cases of this infection were registered in the country. By 1958, the incidence of poliomyelitis in the USSR reached 10.66 cases per 100,000 population. Based on the attenuated, weakened, strains of the American scientist Albert Sabin, the USSR developed its own vaccine by virologists Mikhail Chumakov and Anatoly Smorodintsev. But I was already, thanks to a miracle, recovering. Throughout my life I felt that the stone recognized me. He constantly lay under my pillow. At school, he helped me study well. I graduated from school with a silver medal. All my grades were 5, excellent, only in Russian I had 4, good. In a dream, I consulted with him. And he helped me find the right answers, not only at school, but also in later life. On March 20, 1953, archaeologists found 2 copper scrolls in the Third Qumran cave. They were soon taken to the Jerusalem Museum and have since been in display, a mystery to visitors. Meanwhile, specialists around the world were puzzling over how to give strength to almost pure copper, which had become very brittle as a result of oxidation. It was necessary to unfold and read the ancient text. On the inside of the scroll were scrawled Hebrew letters, each 1 square centimeter in size. Some letters are imprinted on the outside of the scroll. Since the needle pressed unevenly, it was possible to make out only individual letters, and sometimes words, but not whole phrases. In addition, it was easy to take the natural irregularities of the metal for the letters or, conversely, the letters for the irregularities of the metal. The deciphering of the scrolls was further hampered by the fact that the letters carved on copper look somewhat different from those written on leather or papyrus. In September 1953, Professor Carl George Kuhn, Göttingen, came to Jerusalem for 2 months. He was going to study the manuscripts of the community in order to see if they had features in common with the Iranian religion, but after visiting the museum, he could no longer tear himself away from the copper scrolls and set out to decipher them. Since any touch of valuable and very fragile finds could be fatal for them, even the famous scientist was not allowed to touch, let alone turn the scrolls. The College of Technology designed an extremely complex mechanism for sawing a copper scroll from the Dead Sea. Installed on a trolley and fixed by a thin aluminum spindle passed through it, the scroll was brought directly under the elastic lever, on which a saw with a diameter of 5 centimeters and a thickness of 0.15 millimeters was mounted. The device of the saw allowed her to cut only 1 layer of copper. In order to avoid concussions that threatened to destroy the fragile metal, the outer side of the scroll was covered with a layer of araldite and the scroll was heated to a certain temperature for several hours. On September 30, 1955, the first cut was made. A layer of dust and dirt a few millimeters thick obscured the text. Next to the cutting machine, a device resembling a dental drill was installed, which carefully cleaned the copper sheet with nylon brushes. The specialists got used to the work faster than expected, and soon began to saw off 2 or 3 strips a day. Meanwhile, it was not easy. The scribe, only at the beginning, out of inexperience, pressed hard on the chisel, so that only a few lines were clearly imprinted on the reverse side of the scrolls. The scroll contained about 3,000 letters. The language in which it was written had already departed from the classical Hebrew of the Bible and was close to the Hebrew of the 2nd century. In this scroll, scientists found the encrypted name of Akhenaten, as well as a mention of a treasure associated with the name of the angel Beton. I really want this magic stone to recognize my granddaughter. Then this story of mine will be continued by her.